The Ottawa Real Estate Board just released its numbers for May, the much anticipated month after new interest rates, inflation, and lots of headliner news. So have the prices dropped, and did you overpay for that home you bought this year? Let's talk about it. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Andrei Medow and I service Ottawa and the surrounding areas, and we help clients buy, sell, rent, invest properties in the nation's capital. If you're new here, please consider subscribing, hitting that like button. If you'd like to schedule consultations with myself to talk more about the market, there's a link in the description below. So the stats are in, and we're going to get into them in a minute, but first I want to talk about the biggest objection or regret that I've been hearing so far this year. And that is, did I overpay for my property? Also known as buyer's remorse. Now, it's easy to get caught up in the misleading information, especially headliner news, where titles can easily convince you otherwise, and there are tons of them out there. We work with actual stats week over week, month over month, and year over year to help you better understand what's actually happening in the market and to help you make a decision whether now is the right time to be in the market or not. As of today, we have 5 months of data for this year. I'm pretty sure that you would agree that that is not enough info to make a conclusion on how the market will play out by the end of the year. Now, have the prices dropped since a peak month of this year? Yes. Have the prices dropped since last year? No. Are sales and price the same thing? No. So it's important to understand these basics first and the actual data behind them, so let's get right into it. Here we have a month-over-month comparison for the most common type of properties for the last 5 months. The numbers that you see in red are where the prices have peaked so far this year compared to the other months. DOM stands for days on market and MOI is months of inventory. Quick note as well, number of sales is the actual number of transactions that happened or how many sold properties there were. So as we look more in detail at the numbers, what you need to understand is that March of 2022 was the peak month in terms of prices hitting their highest so far for all types of homes. The lowest days on market, or how long the average was to sell a home, was back in April at 10 days. Months of inventory, which is our indicator for what type of market we're currently in, and that is a seller's market. The lowest amount of inventory or homes to choose from was back at the start of the year in January and February. And the number of sales also peaked in March. Now let's look at a year over year. As you can see, every single type of property is still up in value, and that is an important indicator in terms of if price is actually dropping and the value of homes going down. Condos, I still think, are going to be in high demand this year, as it's what the average income producer can afford at just under $500,000. And if you saw the last slide, the average sold price hasn't really changed for the last 3 months. I think a lot of buyers are also realizing that you can't start off with your first property as your dream home, but rather work your way up by building equity and then upsizing over several years. So what do we need to understand based on these numbers going forward? Let's start with MOI, or months of inventory. The reason this is such an important indicator to me is because it tells us what type of market we're currently in. Anything below 3 months of inventory is considered a seller's market, which means the demand is high and there's lots of competition between buyers as they're all looking at more or less the same properties. So this is where we would see bidding wars and aggressive prices being offered, really pushing the limit of what a seller might be able to get for their home. Anything between 4 to 6 months of inventory is called a balanced market, and that is where prices hover and don't really jump up and down. Buyers now have more options and the demand and competition is less. Typically here, buyers can look at several homes, compare each property, come back for another showing, and then make a decision. That also means homes take much longer to sell than in a seller's market. So what's a buyer's market that we've been hearing about in the news? Again, be careful of these headliners. A buyer's market is anything over 6 months of inventory. To put that into perspective, homes will need to sit on the market for many, many months before being sold. And of course, prices would be much lower as the demand is just not there. So really the sellers are at the mercy of what the buyers would offer, and in return would lower the value of their homes significantly. In Ottawa this year, we've been averaging so far 1.3 months of inventory. With May being at 1.6 months, where do I see supply going? I think that by the end of the summer, it could get up to 2 months of inventory. We just saw another rate hike increase a couple of days ago and scheduled for another one in July. So really the next 2 months will give us a clear understanding if those external factors will actually affect supply. Ottawa typically sees more listings come onto the market during the summer. Curb appeal and nice weather all play a factor. But at the same time, that is not when the market is the strongest or at its peak. That also means if you're a buyer, this would probably be the smartest time to buy a home before fall comes, where we see most buyers return from their summer time off and get back into the market. What do you think will happen to prices in months of inventory by the end of the summer? Will the new rate hikes affect supply? Will prices drop year over year? Is this still a good time to buy or sell a home? Would love to hear your thoughts. Drop your comments below and talk to you in the next one.